Hello and welcome. Has Keir Starmer gone too far? Is he now much more of a liability than an asset for the Labour Party? Well, in case you haven't guessed what I'm talking about, it's the China spy case. And what I want to do in this video, if you haven't had a chance to look at this case in any particular detail, is to give you a summary as I understand it. Because until you read and reread, or at least this was my experience, it's like hard to figure out exactly what is this about. I hope to give you a summary and also bring you up to speed in terms of what Keir said really recently. That means he's way out on a limb. He's definitely drawing a line in the sand. To begin then, let us look at the BBC. I'm going to start with MI5 because I think it's important to understand the seriousness of what's been going on. So the MI5 chief is frustrated over the collapse of the China spy case. So this is Ken McCallum, and in a speech he said he had intervened to disrupt Chinese activity of national security concern in the past week. This is serious stuff. This is MI5 addressing a row over the collapse of a case involving alleged spying on behalf of China and the UK, which is what we're going to be talking about in this video. So Ken said the alleged activity was disrupted by MI5 and that it was frustrating when prosecutions fall through. So he's frustrated that no prosecution went ahead. In essence, that it wasn't heard in a proper legal setting. The government and the Crown Prosecution Service are facing questions over the collapse of the case. And again, BBC, the controversy over the collapsed China spy case explained. So the UK government is facing questions after a case against two men accused of spying for China collapsed just weeks before the trial was due to go ahead. And it's always interesting to me when timing is serendipitous like that. There's serendipity. In other words, what I mean by that is this is good fortune for some, but isn't necessarily good fortune for everyone. So what was the case about? We've got Christopher Cash, a former researcher, and Christopher Berry, an academic, charged Official Secrets Act. They were accused of gathering and providing information prejudicial to the safety and interests of the state. So 2021 to 2023. The case against the pair alleges that they passed politically sensitive information to a Chinese intelligence agent, which was then handed to a senior member of the Chinese Communist Party. So it's serious stuff. Matthew Collins. So who is he? The Deputy National Security Advisor. A civil servant, not a politician, civil servant. So that's who he is, the Deputy Security Advisor, National. In his witness statements, Mr. Collins describes China as the biggest state-based threat to the UK's economic security and says the country's intelligence services conduct large-scale espionage operations against the UK. Okay, that was a statement made under the Conservatives. So when he was working as a civil servant under the Conservatives, that's what he wrote. In his two statements submitted under Labour, he also emphasises that the government is committed to pursuing a positive relationship with China. His final statement from August, again, so this is under Labour, adds, the government's position is that we will cooperate where we can, compete where we need to, and challenge where we must, including on issues of national security. Now, the Conservatives have pointed out that this language is directly lifted from Labour's 2024 election manifesto and have questioned whether a government advisor or minister suggested it should be included. Government sources deny this. To put this in context, what this witness statement is saying that has been provided by Matthew Collins is different in tone, at least in part, from what he provided when it was a Conservative government. And I think it's really important to highlight this. The head of the Crown Prosecution Service has said the case collapsed because evidence could not be obtained from the government referring to China as a national security threat. Director of Public Prosecution Stephen Parkinson, who is the most senior prosecutor in England and Wales, said the CPS had tried to obtain further evidence from the government over many months and that witness statements did not meet the threshold to prosecute. And the statements from Matthew Collins were in that mix. And so words that imply collaboration are kind of the antithesis of a national security threat.
On Monday, the security minister repeatedly told the House that ministers did not take decisions, that it was the Deputy National Security Advisor who had full freedom. Is the government seriously saying that only one man, the Deputy National Security Advisor, had anything to do with this failure? Is he seriously saying that the Deputy did not discuss with the National Security Advisor, did not discuss with the Home Secretary or with anyone in Downing Street? Is the Prime Minister seriously saying that?
Yes. On the face of it, this looks highly unlikely, and this is what people are saying. Why were those words in there, this direct lift from a manifesto, which softens, to quote from someone, it softens the threat, it makes it less credible. Doesn't that seem odd? Doesn't that seem peculiar? If you saw yesterday's video, you will recognise this gentleman.
So the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, said very clearly, are you blaming the Deputy National Security Advisor? Are you saying that the evidence that was provided to the Crown Prosecution Service in this case all depended on him and that he acted with no political interference whatsoever? He didn't speak to anybody about the evidence he was including. And the Prime Minister said yes. And when he said yes, everybody's eyebrows were raised at that point, because that would be very odd to have the Deputy National Security Advisor not speak to his boss, not speak to the Home Office or anyone else. So everybody was thinking, well, that's very strange. Then these files were published, and this is the key, and this is what I think many people will miss. The first statement that Matt Collins produced under the Conservative government included no paragraph about the government's current policy. The second statement, which was under the Labour government in February 2025, said, and it began with, it is important for me to emphasise, however, that the UK government is committed to pursuing a positive relationship with China. The third statement also includes that paragraph, but then finishes it with a statement of what was in the Labour Party manifesto. The reason that this is so important is that the government has been saying for the past couple of weeks that this was all about the previous government's policy. It had nothing to do with current Labour policy. And if that's the case, there would be no reason for these things to be included because they were irrelevant, in the Prime Minister's own words.
And that's an interesting additional point that was made there. That because Labour had been saying, no, any understanding, conceptualisation of China as not being a threat is because of the Tories. I mean, yeah, Labour do have a tendency to say that about almost everything, don't they? But it was them what done it, Gov. But now we see that this potential softening by changing the wording, pulling in some stuff that seems to be a lift from the Labour Party manifesto, which again, as I've said, hints at like collaboration, is nothing to do then with the Tories. And I come back to why would the civil servant decide to put that in? It's very, very peculiar. It just doesn't fit. And that he did it on his own. So he hasn't consulted. Someone else said, yeah, do it, or, tipped him the wink or the nod and said, yeah, we'll take care of it. You just put that in, everything will be fine. We'll blame it on the Tories. But Keir Starmer's saying, no, that didn't happen. This guy, in essence, my understanding, is he worked in isolation. And I do hope that the investigation into this is unbiased and thorough, and it doesn't spare anyone's blushes.